To America, the Cunninghams were the ideal family. Richie was the all-American boy. Fonzie was the coolest cat on the block, and Milwaukee never looked better. But behind the polished jukebox and that catchy theme song, Happy Days was hiding a few skeletons in its leather-jacketed closet. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 15 shocking secrets that'll make you see Arnold's Drive-In in a whole new light. Trust me, some of these will blow your mind. Secret number 1, the Ron Howard Rebellion.
Okay, you asked for it.
You'd think America's favorite redhead would be thrilled to be on television's biggest hit. But Ron Howard was actually plotting his escape from day one. Behind that wholesome Richie Cunningham smile was an ambitious young man who wanted to direct movies, not star in sitcoms. Howard constantly butted heads with producers about his future, often showing up to work with film scripts tucked under his arm. The tension got so bad that by season 4, Howard was openly negotiating his exit strategy. He'd already directed his first film, Grand Theft Auto, using his Happy Days leverage to secure the deal. The producers knew they were losing their leading man, but they couldn't have predicted how completely Fonzie would fill that void. Secret number 2, Henry Winkler's nightmare contract. Here's the kicker about the Fonz's meteoric rise to fame. Henry Winkler barely made any money from it. When he signed his original contract, Fonzie was supposed to be a minor character appearing in just a few episodes. But as his popularity exploded, Winkler found himself locked into a deal that paid him peanuts compared to what he should have been earning as the show's breakout star. While Ron Howard was pulling down top dollar as the official lead, Winkler was making a fraction of that, despite being the reason people tuned in. The actor later admitted he was too naive about Hollywood business to negotiate properly, a mistake that cost him millions and left him bitter about the industry for years. Secret number 3, the shark jump that changed television forever. Everyone knows jumping the shark refers to the moment a TV show goes completely off the rails, but most people don't realize how absolutely ridiculous that original water skiing scene actually was. In the 5th season premiere, Fonzie literally water skis over a shark while wearing his leather jacket, because apparently that's what leather jackets are for. The writers knew it was insane, the actors knew it was insane, and deep down the audience knew it too. But here's the twist, the episode was actually a ratings hit. The phrase jumping the shark didn't become synonymous with creative bankruptcy until decades later when TV critic John Hine popularized it. The Fonz's aquatic stunt didn't kill the show. It gave us the perfect term for when shows lose their minds. If this already has you looking at Happy Days in a whole new light, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes bombshells from TV's golden age. Secret number 4, the great merchandising lawsuit. 25 years after Happy Days ended, the cast went to war with CBS over something that should have made them rich: merchandising. In 2010, several cast members filed a lawsuit claiming they were owed millions in royalties from Happy Days lunchboxes, action figures, and other merchandise that had been sold worldwide for decades. The network had been pocketing nearly all the profits while the actors got nothing. Marion Ross, Don Most, Anson Williams, and Aaron Moran banded together in a legal battle that revealed just how badly TV stars could be screwed over by studio contracts. They eventually won a settlement, but it took years of fighting and legal fees that ate into their victory. The lawsuit exposed how the golden age of television was built on contracts that were anything but golden for the talent. Secret number 5, Potsy's Vanishing Act. Poor Anson Williams thought he was signing up to be a leading man. In the original concept, Potsy Weber was supposed to be Richie's equal. Williams even had a recording contract lined up, planning to leverage his TV fame into a music career. But then Henry Winkler showed up as the Fonz, and everything changed. Suddenly, Potsy went from potential co-star to comic relief to barely there background character. Williams watched his screen time evaporate as writers became obsessed with the leather-jacketed cool guy. By the final seasons, Potsy had so few lines that Williams joked he was essentially an extra with a name tag. Secret number 6. The Censorship Wars. You might think a show about the 1950s would have an easy time with network censors, but Happy Days fought constant battles over what was considered appropriate for family television. The word pregnant was forbidden. Characters could only be expecting. The Fonz couldn't be shown smoking, even though that's exactly what cool guys did in the actual 1950s. Most bizarrely, married couples couldn't be shown in the same bed, which is why Howard and Marion Cunningham always had those ridiculous twin beds. The producers regularly submitted scripts knowing certain jokes and situations would be cut, just to negotiate down to what they actually wanted. Secret number 7. The laugh track deception. Here's something that'll ruin your nostalgia. Most of those laughs you heard weren't real. While Happy Days was filmed in front of a live studio audience for its first few seasons, the show increasingly relied on canned laughter as production demands intensified. Entire episodes were shot on closed sets with laugh tracks added in post-production. The dead giveaway? Listen carefully to crowd reactions during Fonzie scenes. They're often too perfectly timed and suspiciously similar from episode to episode. The show's sound engineers became masters of layering different laugh tracks to create the illusion of a live audience. Secret number 8. The leather jacket rules. ABC executives were terrified that the Fonz would be too cool, so they created the most ridiculous rule in television history. Henry Winkler could only wear his leather jacket when he was near his motorcycle. The network worried that a leather jacket might make Fonzie look like a juvenile delinquent, which was apparently worse than looking like a guy who randomly carried motorcycle gear around. This led to absurd scenes where Fonzie would dramatically approach his bike just so he could put on his jacket for a scene. Winkler and the writers eventually wore down the executives, but not before creating some of the most awkward wardrobe moments in TV history. The irony? The leather jacket became the most iconic piece of television costume ever, and it's now in the Smithsonian. Secret number 9. The Arnold Shuffle. Pat Morita's departure as Arnold wasn't about creative differences or salary disputes. It was about opportunity. When Morita landed the starring role in The Karate Kid, he had to leave Happy Days behind. The problem was that Arnold's drive-in was central to the show's identity. Enter Al Del Vecchio, played by Al Molinaro, who had to step into an established role without missing a beat. The transition was awkward because the writers couldn't decide whether to acknowledge Arnold's absence or pretend Al had always been there. Audiences were confused. Cast members had to adjust their rhythms, and Molinaro faced the impossible task of replacing a beloved character. Secret number 10. The Chachi Experiment. Scott Baio's arrival in Season 5 was a desperate attempt to recapture the Fonzie magic with a younger model. The network was convinced that teenage girls would swoon over Chachi the same way they'd fallen for the Fonz, creating a new merchandising goldmine. They weren't entirely wrong. Chachi did become popular, but the character fundamentally changed the show's dynamic. Suddenly, Happy Days was trying to be a teen heartthrob vehicle instead of a nostalgic family sitcom. Baio's character got storylines that should have gone to established cast members, and the focus shifted from ensemble comedy to showcasing the pretty new kid. Let us know in the comments. Were you Team Richie or Team Fonzie? Or maybe you were just here for Al's jokes. Either way, we want to hear your take. Secret number 11. Spinoff Cannibalism. Happy Days didn't just create spin-offs. It created a television empire that eventually consumed its parent show. Laverne and Shirley became more popular than Happy Days itself, while Mork and Mindy turned Robin Williams into a superstar overnight. The problem was that these spin-offs required constant crossover episodes and shared storylines that diluted Happy Days' focus. Writers were juggling multiple shows. Actors were appearing on programs they weren't contracted for, and the original series became a launching pad for other projects rather than a destination in its own right. By the late 1970s, Happy Days felt less like a show and more like a franchise headquarters. The tail was wagging the dog, and the dog was getting tired. Secret number 12. The secret romance and its tragic end. Aaron Moran and Scott Baio's on-screen chemistry as Joni and Chachi wasn't entirely acting. They were genuinely involved behind the scenes. Their real-life romance was kept quiet by the studio, which feared that teenage fans might lose interest if Chachi was officially taken. The relationship was passionate but tumultuous, complicated by the pressures of fame and the artificial environment of television production. When they eventually broke up, they still had to play lovers on camera, creating awkward tension that veteran cast members could feel during filming. Years later, after Moran's tragic death in 2017, Baio revealed how much their young love had meant to him and how Hollywood's demands had made it impossible to sustain. It's a reminder that behind every TV romance, there are real people with real hearts. Secret number 13. Tom Bosley's identity crisis. Tom Bosley was terrified of being typecast as America's dad, and his fears were completely justified. Before Happy Days, Bosley was primarily known as a stage actor who could handle dramatic roles in musical theater. Playing Howard Cunningham was supposed to be a temporary gig, but the character's popularity trapped him in sitcom land. Bosley watched other dramatic actors get the serious roles he wanted, while casting directors could only see him as the friendly hardware store owner from Milwaukee. Secret number 14. The theme song Switcheroo. Those first 2 seasons of Happy Days had a completely different opening theme, Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and his Comets. The iconic Happy Days song that everyone remembers didn't arrive until season 3, and it wasn't originally written for the show. The familiar tune was actually composed for the American Graffiti soundtrack and retrofitted for television. This explains why early episodes feel slightly different. They were literally set to different music. Secret number 15. The ending that never really ended. Happy Days finale in 1984 was one of the most anticlimactic endings in television history. There was no big send-off, no special episode, no emotional farewell. The show just sort of stopped. The final episode was a regular installment that happened to be the last one, leaving viewers confused about whether they'd actually witnessed a series finale. Behind the scenes, everyone knew the show was ending, but there was no budget or creative energy left for a proper goodbye. Cast members filmed their final scenes without ceremony, and some didn't even realize it was their last day until weeks later. On the surface, Happy Days looked like a simpler time. Greasers, sock hops, and innocent fun. But the truth is, the drama off-screen could rival any soap opera. Salary disputes, secret romances, creative battles, and corporate manipulation. It was all there beneath that wholesome Milwaukee veneer. And maybe that's what made it real. The struggles behind the camera were just as human as the stories in front of it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of TV's most iconic shows, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a trip down memory lane. Because trust me, there are plenty more secrets where these came from.